All right, ladies
Yes.
and gentlemen, thank you for coming here to Revolutionizing Process Automation with Mendix. I am John Scalamaro. I am the Manager of Architecture Enablement and Strategy at Mendix, and it is really my pleasure to introduce to you guys a really exciting use case from Avertra. And I'd like to introduce Bashir Bersani. Did I get that right?
Bashir Sarani, yeah, close
Bersani
enough.
and Matt Daniels from Avertra. So give them a warm welcome, and then I'll let you guys take it away.
Oh, one more hand of applause for the man of the hour. Derek, please, he just walked in the room. We're honored to have him here. Well, thanks, guys. My name is Bashir Sarani. I'm the CEO and CTO here at Avertra. We're actually in a very unique position. We are a Mendix partner as well as a Mendix customer. And we're going to let you guys know a little bit about the cool things that we're doing with Mendix that aren't traditionally marketed. And we really like a lot of the stuff that we're hearing as part of this Mendix World event, which has been beautifully orchestrated, really fits in with our vision of how to use the platform. With me today is Matt Daniels. He's our Director of Engineering. All of our Mendix teams actually fall under him, and he actually owns our platform that's been converted onto Mendix. So at Avertra, we started off, not to bore you guys with some of our story, but we started off in 2007 purely as a consulting business. Our founder used to work for a utility out in the United States. After being part of their digital transformation, moving on to SAP, he decided that he wanted to go on and start his own business, supporting other utilities and other really regulated type industries in their journeys. And from there, basically, we started off, and around in 2013, we kicked off what we're calling our products division within our organization. And that's where we really started building out our MiUtility platform, which is a digital customer experience, you could call it framework, that has many different types of modules, pages, widgets, interfaces that integrate with SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, and some other industry-leading platforms out there to really help utilities increase the customer engagement as well as simplify the work lifecycle within their own internal teams. Right, because that's the thing. Everybody talks about customer experience, but we wanted to also focus on agent experience, field technician experience, call center agent experience, back office agent experience. What about their experience? And that's where we built MyCustomer. We're very happy that over 12 million endpoints are actually integrating into our platform. We have over 30 plus cloud hosting environments that we're actually currently managing today. Our DevOps team is very busy doing all that because the majority of our customers actually want dedicated cloud. So that's where basically it becomes more of a challenge for us, but our team's really good at that. We've developed over 300 features and have spent over 200,000 man hours of R&D and different types of activities to get our product to where it is today. So these are some of our customers in the US. I know none of these logos make any sense to you guys, but basically what it is, what we like to showcase here is that we've worked with small utilities and small customers that have anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 meters or customers' endpoints, all the way to some really big customers like Puget Sound Energy. We also have up there Centerpoint Energy that have millions and millions and millions of meters, right? And they're all using our products and or our services. We are not being only multidisciplined, we're also multi-geographic distributed. We are in the US, that's where our headquarters is. We actually just acquired a company here in the Netherlands, so we're actually really excited about now coming into this market and expanding our footprint here in Europe. We also operate out in Jordan, we operate in Dubai, as well as in India, which gives us a real ability to really help our customers follow the sun when we're trying to support them and have continuous delivery and continuous innovation. So let's get into the topic. So we want to focus now so even though we built a platform that consists of many apps, we actually wanted to abstract the concept of an app and really focus on the process itself. So if we look at a process, processes can be really done either, like I said, manual, there's integrated processes, we have automated, optimized, and digitized. Now, I'm sure the majority here, you guys are at Mendix World, which means I'm sure everybody is really trying to go towards having a fully digitized company and digitized processes, but it takes some time. And we're going to talk about a methodology, how to get there, as well as how to keep improving your current process to make it fully digital. So unfortunately, we don't have as many customers in the far right area, and that's where we, again, want to really try to help you guys. So what we're going to be showing you guys actually is on the optimized side. So that's going to be part of our demo. How can we really optimize a business process and integrate it with create multiple systems without the use of an agent to be able to increase that number from 12% to something even higher? So how do we look at it? What's the evolution? So everybody's heard about RPA and robotic process automation. I'm sure you've heard of Blue Prism and UiPath and some of these other tools. Well, those platforms really are script-based, where you go ahead, you click around the screen, you record it, and then the process automation framework goes and does the same exact thing that an agent does. Well, frankly, Excel can do that, right? I mean, you don't really need to buy UiPath or Blue Prism to be able to achieve that. So those are macros and certain types of scripts. Well, how can we go even beyond that? So the way that we're looking at it right now is you have assisted RPA. So how many here have any automation, I guess, initiatives going on in their companies today? If I get everyone. If you are in the autonomous RPA realm, please raise your hand from those that actually did. None. Unassisted RPA? None. Well, one. Wow. So there's a big market out there. Right now, a lot of people are in really the assisted RPA realm. When your agent needs additional support or they need something to do, that's where the Blue Prism guys come and play, and they really help them with either a guided procedure or really help them set the process back on track. But you don't really have bots or virtual agents or digital agents in the background really looking at your system, looking at the exceptions, taking out logs, and then figuring out what the issue is and resolving them. Right? That you guys, not a lot of people have that. We're actually going to be showing you how we were able to achieve that with Mendix. We're not saying that we've gotten all the way to the cognitive RPA. That is still to come. Right? Our data scientists and our engineers are working diligently. We're actually really looking forward to a lot of the cool stuff that Johan was talking about today, because we see that fits 100% into where we're trying to go and how we see robotic process automation should be, and how Mendix can really become a pioneer in this game. So we all want to automate. So if we look at anybody here who's a Mendix fan, we hear about the 4 Ps, right? Our platform, our people who are our most important asset, especially now that we're introducing the citizen developer into the mix, right? The process as well as the platform itself. So why do we want to automate? Well, a lot of people want different reasons, right? Some folks want to automate for lack of resources. Some folks want to automate because they need better data quality, right? Because their training isn't as strong as it should be, and it's easier to automate something versus training somebody. Other folks want to automate to be able to just literally cut costs and reduce the number of agents or the number of personnel. I know that doesn't sound too pretty, but again, you have to figure out what's best for your business and what the use case is that's going to be for your business when you're looking at robotic process automation or introducing a digital agent into your world. So why? What are some of the benefits of automation? If you haven't started an automation project yet, you're probably behind the curve. And that's the reality, right? So for the ones that actually raised their hand when we asked the question, I applaud you, because you guys are where the market is right now. And the ones that haven't, you really need to catch up, because your competitors are probably looking at the things that you're not, right? And they're going to become faster than you, because customer demand, regulatory demand, as well as internal demand from the business is really causing CIOs, chief technology officers, as well as the business to start looking at things a lot differently. So whether you want to reduce your response time to customer demand or to change, or you want to reduce your overall operating costs by digitizing a lot of your processes, or you want to manage compliance. So at Avertra, we are SOC 1, SOC 2, and PCI compliant. So there's a lot of areas where we can have our bots do the work that our auditors are doing. So since we know what our auditors are doing, why can't we have our bots go in and actually start on a monthly basis making sure that we're still compliant with our process, whether it's HR onboarding, whether it's how our DevOps team is working, any business case, any case that you think you could have an agent do, you can really have a bot do. And then, of course, at the end of the thing, it's environmental health and safety. If you have agents or field technicians or somebody going out to the field and you're actually putting them in dangerous scenarios, you should look at introducing things like drones, integrating with bots so they can talk to each other, and truly have a digitized workforce and digitized platform. So our approach is fairly simple. It's an agile approach to how we look at life. And at the beginning, of course, is defining what is my use case. What am I trying to automate? What am I trying to get to? Does it fit into my roadmap? If I'm having my own sidecar project for automation, how is it really going to fit in my overall technical landscape? And where do I have the right resources to be able to do it? So what we do is we normally work with our customers over a 2 to 3 week period to define and answer all these questions for them. And once we do, we put together an actual detailed requirements list where they can come in and actually take that to define the actual use case. And our product owners take those requirements, to convert them into user stories, and then pass them on with our engineers and start building out the actual process itself. And our goal is within 4 to 6 weeks after gaining the actual requirement set for us to be able to deploy our first bot. And we're talking about in an enterprise environment, right? So which I'm sure means the architecture team needs to review it. You're going to need sign off from compliance. The security team needs to come in to make sure that we're not, breaking any rules in those areas. So we think even in an enterprise world, coming in with a simple use case or even a complex use case, we wouldn't need more than 6 weeks after we get the requirements for us to actually achieve this use case in Mendix. And we're actually going to show you guys a pretty complicated use case here. Do we have any utilities, energy providers, telecom providers in the house, or cable providers? Okay, we have 1, 2. So since we are really focused on the utilities industry, I can tell you it's one of the most complicated industries out there, and it's not easy. I mean, starting your service or complaining about your bill, from our standpoint as a consumer, seems to be easy, but what they do in the background is extremely complex, and the agents have to go to multiple screens, multiple systems, and they have multiple different rules that they have to follow. And training these people isn't an easy task, like some of your colleagues here could tell you after this session. So how can we basically go from 0 to hero in less than 10 weeks? That's our goal, and we were able to do that with Mendix, and we were actually extremely pleased with the results that we came up with. So how to increase it? So just like anything else, machines need to learn. Bots need to learn. Your algorithms need to be continuously modified and updated, right? So our goal is to say, once we define the use cases, and in this specific use case, we're looking at exception cases. So an exception case, for example, would be a utility or a telecom company is generating a bill, and for whatever reason, it moves into an outsort. Or a customer's calling in and complaining about a high bill or a high invoice and is not sure why it happened, right? So our goal is to be able to, after we deploy it, like we said, after the 9th week, we now want to sit back, watch, analyze, and collect as much data as we can. Once we have this data with us, what we can do is go ahead and start tweaking, modifying, adding new exception cases, because we'll never say that 100% of the scenarios will be caught from day one. That's not true, right? So our goal is, over time, to increase the total number of exceptions that can run through our automated framework and allow our bot to become smarter and smarter and smarter over time. And the only way to do that is to monitor what's doing, fix the exceptions that were not resolved through the automated queue manually, take the steps that the agents actually performed manually, go back, and then update our logic and our microflows in the other areas for them to actually understand what was done from a resolution standpoint. And then from there, start taking it forward. And then hopefully, as we keep moving forward, the technology is going to be moving forward. So our hope is, once we go to the beyond realm, that's where we're expecting also Mendix to be smarter, including AI as part of its platform, which is going to quickly increase the capability of what we're able to do in our platform. So then once we basically get past the improve and we expand to scale, normally that's when we can start looking at different types of use cases, because then we would have proven the point, right? We would have said, yes, this works. Yes, we were able to resolve. We were able to collect data. We were able to identify the issues. And now we're actually able to go ahead and reduce. And the target would be that after 1 year of implementing this, to be able to push over 85% of that specific use case into the bot and not into the agent. But that doesn't mean we get rid of our people, right? Because our people are our most important asset, right? So that means what we can do is train them, upskill them. We have them focus on different things instead of sitting down and just reading screens and reading data. Have them become monitors. Have them become Mendix developers. You can have them do so many other tasks beyond terminating. Termination should be the last thing you're thinking about. It's how I can reutilize my most important asset, which is my people. So how are we looking at Mendix, and how are we integrating Mendix with the world? So what we've done is, you can see, if we look at our underlying systems, I can have a work management system, a geospatial system, a CRM system, an ERP, could be SAP, could be Oracle, could be whatever. I have a big data or machine learning algorithms that are continuously churning data and giving me segmentations and profiling and different types of data elements, as well as my different types of access control. And what we've done is we were able to integrate Mendix across this landscape and basically start talking and passing data as an orchestrator from one to another without an agent as soon as an event comes in. So we have been able to show that Mendix can identify incidents. We can have them turn into tasks. We can have Mendix collaborate between systems as well as between people in case I need an actual human approval for a certain change that I'm going to be making. Mendix is used to actually verify data between environments and verify certain connections are up and running, as well as creating tickets in certain systems that we have integrated with our environment. So this is how we looked at Mendix. This is how we're using it. And to take a step back, at Avertra, we're actually using Mendix in 3 ways. Number one, to actually build apps that have a UI, whether it's a voice UI or an actual digital UI that you can touch and use as a consumer. We're using Mendix as a robotic process automation framework, and we're also using Mendix as an orchestrator or a middleware between our environments, right? So those are the 3 use cases that we're actually utilizing Mendix very successfully. And I would just say our largest app that's been deployed has around 1.2 million users monthly. So we're actually pretty proud of the scalability that we've been able to take our apps to. So let's go into a real-world industry solution instead of all the boring stuff about RPA. And Matt?
Yeah, so the slide that you see on the screen shows a little bit more about the functional parts of our platform. I want to take a quick moment here. A little while back, Mendix invited Bashir and myself to Boston to meet with several of their leaders, and it made us kind of take a step back and look at our platform in a more broader sense, find ways to use it in different ways, and how can we strive towards higher and higher levels of process automation. So what we've actually built at Avertra is a microservice app landscape comprised of hundreds of these microservice modules, back-end abstractions that make it easier for our developers to pick up these reusable parts within our large Mendix project and start to do different things with various external systems. So on here you see the functional areas that our platform sort of supports out of the box that you can use to build higher and more robust levels of deeply integrated process automation. As Bashir mentioned, the use case is very important, and he did touch on how the use case that you'll see in this demo here from a consumer perspective should be quite easy, but the folks inside our industry know that there are many back-end steps to some of these what seem to be simple processes. So where we'd actually started was we have a product called MyBob, which is a back-office billing application. And essentially what happened was we had a customer who approached us who was going through an SAP implementation, and some of the projections that they were looking at, according to other like implementations, is that they were going to see a drastic increase in the number of exception cases that they would experience right after go live. Maybe some folks in the room have actually experienced this. So one approach they were thinking about is actually staffing up the call center to like ridiculously high degrees, something. Well, they wanted to add 1,000 people to their call center. This is how, I think they have 14 million.
Yeah, this is the largest utility in the state of California.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're massive. They're around 5 million endpoints and around 14,000 employees. So it's a pretty substantially large utility.
So that was their plan until they had met us, and we started to discuss with them about our MyBob application and the things that we were doing in automated exception resolution, especially in more complex use cases that can sometimes take, and here are the numbers kind of on the use case that you'll see. For a person to resolve the case that you'll see shortly, it can take upwards of 15 to 18 minutes per
So this
exception
utility,
case.
for the exception that Matt's going to be showing you, their agents would take on average around 16.2 minutes to actually handle that exception and to solve it due to the total number of screens and different types of transactions that they actually have to take, as well as knowing what to look for. That's one of the most important things. If your agents don't know what to look for, it's going to take them even longer to find it.
And so this was the idea. We would break down these, it's a wide range of common exception cases that you face after go live, and a lot of companies have been trying to solve the problem with staff hog, and we were trying to come with a very light tool that would be able to automatically analyze and resolve these EMA cases right out of their go live, allowing them to manage that sort of stabilization period a little smoother. So the scenario that we're going to show you today, we call it the high bill complaint scenario. So I think a lot of us could kind of relate with this. If we're not using our energy properly and that bill's too high, sometimes we call the utility and yell at them. In fact, I started in the call center when I was about 16 years old working in an electric utility, and I'd say probably 70% of the time on a call, even as a 16-year-old, were customers yelling at me basically about their bill and whatnot. So in this scenario, we do several things. We've integrated 4 or 5 systems into the main workflow, and it'll do things like collect all the data that would normally be needed by an analyst to determine various reasons that the bill may have been wrong from a consumption perspective. And bear with me on some of the industry jargon. But essentially, we'll gather up that data. We need to analyze it, analyze and compare it with other good quality data from a variety of services that are available on the web to allow us to analyze the resolution and propose various resolutions for this type of exception, and then sort of take each customer's client-specific tolerance limits and business rules that may come in, apply those, and actually the automation will then predict or suggest what resolution path may be most appropriate for the current situation. And then the framework will support an n number of possible resolution paths. So even while this is a high bill complaint scenario, one of the segments of this automation is trying to figure out which resolution path I should take and then give a framework to add as many of those over time to the point of trying to increase success rate over time. And one of our goals with this initiative was to be able to prioritize those exception use cases and roll them out quick and fast in agile development cycles and add more resolution paths. Then at the end, of course, there's a lot of cleanup and documentation that these companies have to do to make sure that they pass audits and keep proper tracking. So we go ahead and clean that up at the end. The last note about this is this was all done kind of reusing all of the reusability that we had built into our microservice app landscape. So of these hundreds of modules, we were able to construct more robust singular workflows without a user interface, so to speak. So with all that being said, let's now jump in and show some of the magic. Poof, magic.
How many customers here are people who are running SAP as a ERP or considering SAP? Wow.
So I'm going to log into
Matt.
okay. Let's see what's going on here. So I've logged into the MiUtility platform, and you land on the product switcher, which is the variety of applications we built and been transforming to Mendix. I mentioned earlier that our application, MyBob, is our back office biller application. After you reach the launch pad, you go to your briefcase where we synchronize with all of the exception cases within this SAP system, and this is connected to a live SAP system. In fact, I'm going to show you some of the SAP screens before we start so you can see that it's actually doing all of this magic in the background. But once you land on the briefcase itself, you get a listing of all of the current exceptions in the system. So the one we're most going to be looking at today is this first case, 5001. And if I come, this is the view. So this is the Mendix view of the case list. And if I head over to my case list on SAP.
So sexy, right?
Yes. I have an exception case here for cancel and high bill inquiry. So typically the process would start customer calls in and yells at me, and then I create a case for someone who's smarter than me to go look up and figure out why it's high and if we have to give them some sort of credit or take some corrective action on the account. So the case itself just holds some simple information about the exception, like its account number. And the only one thing I want to show before running it is the bill number from the case, because that at the end of this, we will be generating a new invoice for the customer. So on this document tab, hopefully you can see it, it's the bill that ends in 88. And yes, that's how you see a bill in SAP. And we had the same number. It's so much easier when the microflow is doing it for me. So back on our example case, you can see the 88 as well. So now, back on my MyBob application built with Mendix, right? We're going to run our automation. And so these are the automation parameters that we can save and run on intervals. So while I'm using an interface here to show how to kick it off, we can also schedule these to run at regular intervals and search, like Bashir was saying, proactively to go see what exceptions are in the system and which ones I can resolve. So I'll choose my automation category. We have our billing and cancel, rebill, inquiry, high bill, and I'm going to choose to run the automation immediately. So cross your fingers. So the mass automation is now running, and this is going to take just a few minutes to resolve. So while that's running, I actually wanted to show you the workflow that's actually running a little bit and explain a little about the inner workings of what's going on here. So if I zoom out just a little bit, you can see kind of the length of this, and all are filled with sub-processes. I want to take one moment here to kind of mention the citizen developer again, because one vision that we see inside here, this high bill inquiry actually takes a lot of business knowledge to understand how to basically analyze it and the corrective action that needs to be done to do the resolution successfully. So in part of our vision, we see our business owners being one of the biggest parts of this process. And as we see enhancements to the studio, one way we see like our reusability and ways to enhance and create more resolution paths in our RPA framework would be also to include our citizens developers and help them build more business rules that can also help us determine what different resolution paths to take inside the RPA engine.
Just like how we're saying, how can we make our process automation smarter and smarter? Now we can rely on the citizen developers to go in, and if, for example, our automated framework isn't able to actually resolve it and it kicks out, once we actually identify what the resolution is, we can rely on them to go in. Since all the components are already there, they will have access through the studio to be able to come in and actually train it again. Right? And that's our goal. So that's where a lot of training comes in and upskilling your teams.
And getting more down towards the advanced side of the automation, as Bashir was mentioning, applying different types of learnings to what these cases fail, using different types of deep learning algorithms. We can train even our RPA processes further to increase success rates. So to give you a high level about what's going on here, we're going to zoom in and talk about sort of the major segments of this automated workflow. It's going back to SAP, in this case, to gather a set of meter reading history, which will give us insight into the user's consumption patterns in the past. In the next segment, it's going to call a live AMI meter. So I'm going to attempt to get a real-time read from that meter, bring it back. I'm going to gather some average daily consumption from a large geographic area. We have several online services that allow us to query for large amounts of energy-based data and different timeframes and different geographies. So we're going to kind of use that as a comparison. We're going to do some calculations underneath to calculate average daily consumptions of those users and propose new corrections to this bill. Like maybe the meter reading was wrong and it was really our fault. We overread the meter and now we need to make some sort of estimated adjustment to fix that bill. So while we bring in some tolerance configurations here, the main message is that we want to engage with each one of our clients. The success rate of some of this RPA depends tightly on very specific use cases for all different types of companies. So working closely with them to use the power and the platform thinking of Mendix to build your own configurable tolerance limits into these automated workflows is also what we're demonstrating here. So I give it basically a baseline tolerance percentage that I'm willing to work with in the fluctuation of the usage for that particular customer. Then the most important part of all this is the two microflows right here, which the first one will determine which resolution path I should take based on all of the information I've gathered till now, and then execute that one. So we have one in our demo for now, which what it's essentially doing is realizing that the bill was too high at the fault of the utility, and is going to go ahead, reverse that bill, correct the meter reading. It's going to then rebill the account. It's going to put an account lock on the account, which will stop sort of the collection process for that particular customer and give them a $10 credit. And so in certain cases, you may not want to give them the credit. So this is sort of where you can bifurcate the resolution paths and create different successful business means to resolve this exception. And down to the cleanup section, we go ahead and close that EMMA case in SAP and also document properly inside. So by now, it must be done. Let me refresh my briefcase. And I can see that that 5001 case was completed. We had completed some others. There were also some that were left untouched. So back in SAP, we should have seen some things change. So if I head back to my installation, I can now see that I have a bill ending in 89. And while just the number changed from 88 to 89, there was actually 5 or 6 stages of processing behind this. And that's sort of the end result. Although a little anticlimactic with the number changing, there are other aspects that have changed, such as the meter read result. This was a new calculated meter read result. Probably should have showed you the tab before. It was 3,000 before I started. Sorry, but it's recalculated a more reasonable read now that we've actually, found a current read and did some calculation back into the past. And so to kind of round this off, there's still the point of what do I do after some of these cases still kick out of my automation? And while we want to try to reduce this manual process over the long term, and our agile cycles work to make more robust resolution paths, you can always launch into one of these cases and then start to use any one of our variety of applications. In this case, it's MyBob or my back office biller, to then analyze that case that kicked out and now use a Mendix app to go about resolving that case manually and in the most efficient way possible. Some of the data in. And that's about it.
I think that's it. So what we're able to see is how we configured Mendix to go to SAP, find an exception, identify the resolution path per what we've trained it to do, connect to multiple other external systems outside of SAP to verify data, bring it all together into one environment, identify the change, make that change in SAP, and then kick it back out for you to be able to see the results. And that took seconds versus the 16.2 minutes it used to take before we deployed this.
Minus all the time, long-winded explanations.
Minus all the long-winded explanations. So yeah, these are some of the capabilities that we're seeing that we can do with Mendix, and as Mendix advances their platform, we're sure our offering is going to be advancing with them. So we can take any questions if you guys want. Sure. We'll let our moderator decide.
Do a little bit of running.
Hello, I have a question regarding access rights. How was it actually done that you can so easily go to SAP and read and write the data up there?
Good question.
Was there any kind of like a process to obtain the access rights? What kind of user are you working? Is it like a special license from SAP? Or is this a system account? How is it?
Yeah, so something I'm very proud to announce. We had been working on this for about the last 5.5 years. Recently, we have got certified from SAP. We have a certified add-on, basically, that you install via transport, and it ends up just with a little bit of web service configuration, exposing about 115 web services directly to our Mendix platform. So all the services are made available through our certified SAP add-on in this case, and it's also an internal SAP environment that we're running here as our R&D. We use a service user in this demo, but we can integrate, it's SOAP or REST basically, but in this installation you see the SOAP, and we have 3 options: the service user, X509 certificate. There's like 3 standard options that SAP gives you to take that gateway path.
Yeah, and either you can use a generic user, or if you wanted to give each bot their own SAP user ID, and you can have them log in through that, so you have the log record to know exactly which bot did what. So there's a few different ways. It depends on your strategy and what your cybersecurity team really wants to do. It's a good question.
The microflow you showed contains quite some business logic.
It does.
How do you know that it works?
That's why the citizen developer is so important, and our product team, to analyze what are all the potential results. Do you mean works like as in from a business perspective, I imagine?
It's not very transparent what's happening.
Yeah, all the good
The
stuff's
outcome.
underneath that next level, right? I was showing the main level, and it's sort of like a presentation level for the automation, but all of the sort of business rule goodness is happening inside those lower level abstractions.
Yeah, but how do you implement the business rules and how do you maintain the business rules?
Yeah, so the main part is We use some business rules, standard in Mendix, the business rules for binary conclusions and enumeration conclusions. We have a full product team as well and been working with utilities closely. We work with our client partner in this case when we're developing these use cases to make sure it's covering the right business analysis that needs to be done to meet the acceptance criteria for that case.
Yeah, so part of our process is we make sure that our clients sign off on the exact resolution steps, right? Because whenever they're doing their implementations or they have their certain SOPs in place when they're training people, you actually have a list of what the agent should be doing, right? And that's where we basically take that same data sets and basically apply them in our microflows.
We also try to be as light as possible, so if there's any chance we're wrong, we kind of back out of it and let that one pass, right? Because we want to increase success rates, but if some get skipped, they're still able to skip the case, if it falls outside of a parameter or throws some weird error.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the third-party software or third-party access you have in the workflow. How do you manage the data that is part of this workflow? Do you get data set? Is it automated web scraping from their services or?
There's a open and sort of free API in the US where I can gather mass census data about energy usage in particular areas over certain periods of time. So we have leveraged that, that's one of the examples, to call out to this third-party website that's a reputable energy data collector. And it's a REST call, and we bring back some summary reports as well. It's not so much the mass data, but it was providing us some summary data about geography.
Yeah, we only get what we need, right? So our request must be proper for us to receive the right data, or else we're going to be clogging up, and it's going to take as long as an agent would take to do it.
Yeah, so the request will only be triggered when the workflow is triggered.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I guess thank you guys very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.